Good morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg, and it's the 21st day of May 2025. Welcome to our show today. We're starting out at 9 o'clock with Liberty Essentials. Bill, Ralph, and Karen, our normal crew here. And then at 10 o'clock, Greg Martini with notices. And we're going to be talking about a Supreme Court decision that appears to be pretty pivotal on the writing of the injustice system in the United States. That's going to be probably a clear path going forward. So I'm going to bring everybody right on because guess what, guys? I got to leave at 11 o'clock today. So we need to get, I'm sticking to a time schedule, which I rarely do.
So in other words, get to the point, everybody.
Let's make this time count. Move it. So what's happening in everybody's world this morning?
I'll tell you, we've been busy. We have been extremely busy. If it's not work, it's work. And if it's not work, it's work. Okay? No man just has a job to do during the day. Any real man will understand that not only do you have to provide for your family, but then you have to come home and you get to be the teacher of the family, the leader, the one who instructs and finishes all the extras that need to be done. On top of that, you have all of the material things that you have in this world that constantly needs upkeep. And I tell you, there was a phrase my dad taught me when I was young, and really I took it to heart because our family used to love the water, right? We used to be out on Gun Lake all the time. We used to be out on Green Lake. So we understand boats. We understand water. We understand how to have fun. We used to go skiing all the time. And to the point where, we even, it was my grandfather and his brothers that actually got banned from Green Lake for having too much fun, right? It was one of those issues. Well, the common phrase is that there are two best days for a man that owns a boat, right? The day he buys, the day he sells it. Anything in between is just a nightmare for a boat owner. And I took it to heart, which is why I don't have a boat today. I just despise boats. And I honestly don't even like being out on them unless they're somebody else's because they maintain them. And that's the way it goes with everything. The more I see, the more that I'm entrusted to take care of is that much more time it involves doing so that I can't be doing on other things, right? So I've slowly more and more began to purge out a lot of the old stuff now that's been hanging over my head that I don't have the time for anymore, so that I can focus on more important things.
Well, that's cool. Might I add, such as the chairman of the Constitution Party?
That was one of them.
That was one of them. Enter in Donna Brandenburg, keeping the party on the ballot. I was like, as soon as I won, as soon as I was voted in as the chair, Bill goes, "I offer you my condolences." So there we go. But we keep going. That's really beautiful. That's beautiful that to see people taking their lives very seriously and making every second count in what we do. And I think you're great at it, Bill. So are you, Karen, and so are you, Ralph. And I really appreciate that about you. Okay. Well, Karen or Bill, you want to say anything about what's going on or that you've seen lately in the news that you want to comment on?
Well, I offered you a link to the first post I made about the Huizenga bill. I call it Huizenga bill because I don't care about, I don't even remember which Democrat it was. It's supposedly a bipartisan bill that would allow for the quote unquote free testing of children's blood for PFAS in certain age ranges in certain counties. So the government would create a fund out of our treasury that would allow them to contract with certain medical labs and etc. in order to collect the blood from these certain qualifying children and then come up with an assessment and a report. It's presented to the public as if it's doing the people a favor, but nowhere in the bill does it say we're going to also account for providing the information of the results of the individual testing back to the families so that they know the results and can act accordingly. they only cover the testing, the report, and some brochures or something like that, pamphlets of information provided to the public about PFAS. But you're talking about a department that doesn't lawfully exist, and the director has the sole decision-making power or authority granted by the bill to make the determination who gets the money. And it says one or more aspects, one or more fundings. I forget the terminology there. I quoted it in my posts. But so there is no limit on the scope of the finances in the bill. There's no estimation of cost. There's no allocation in the annual budget. We're just going to spend this money that doesn't do anything to help the public except provide information about how bad things are. We already know that things are bad. You're not doing anything to help these people. And you don't lawfully exist in the beginning. But, it's just, I just chose to look at the bill, and there's a House bill, 2 House bills, and 2 Senate bills. And one serves up the definitions, one actually describes the actions, and they're both pretty brief, but there's things missing and there's things there that shouldn't be there. So it serves as an example of, hey, we still need to be paying attention, and here's the things that leaped out at me on the first read, and then I forget about it because it's all fake and unlawful to begin with.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, you remember, especially being in Michigan, the whole PFAS situation, when they want to blame Wolverine for the majority of PFAS dumped in the water supply, right? And that became a huge issue. And I don't know how big an area it was, but I've heard it at least all the way from my area and south of me through Rockford and Alpine, all the way up into like Gladwin, right? So I don't know how big they were talking, but that was a big issue. And when I see things like this come out, I mean, we know that a tyrannical government, they create problems and then come and play problem solvers, right? This just reeks of that to me, because though they want to claim that they want to do this screening and scanning illegally to protect the general welfare of the people, yet it comes from the same people that continually spray down barium and aluminum on top of the people, continue to put glyphosate and fluorine in the water supplies, right? That continually allow for the murder of the unborn. So tell me again how this so-called bill and this so-called screening is fiara Sicherheit for your safety. Go ahead and explain that one to me, because I ain't seeing it.
Yeah, I'm not believing any of this nonsense at all.
Well,
and then it allows for laundering.
Well, it doesn't actually solve the problem. It just adds to the awareness of a problem that we're already aware of, that we already know a fair bit about the extent of it.
Well, and look at who's involved in it. Huizenga, not a fan, guys. Just gonna say, because
to be water.
That's one of the oligarch families that have been funding the elections in Michigan, along with DeVos, who started Republicans for Whitmer, who was actually the responsible party for putting Whitmer in office for a second term. It was the Republican Party. Every time we come back to this, I hear, oh, the Republicans are doing good stuff. It's like, no, they are not. It is two wings on an airplane going in the same direction. I'm going to use that instead of a bird. We're going to use airplanes from here on out because I like planes. Okay.
And they crash.
Yeah. Ralph, can you say what you just said again, because you just dropped out during the middle of what you were saying?
Sure. Yeah, we're having some issues this morning here, but we still allow a certain level of PFAS as well as pharmaceuticals through the water treatment facilities that in a lot of communities they are mandating that houses hook up to the water systems rather than use well water that's filtered naturally through through geological means. They're forcing people to hook up to these water systems that allow for all of these different residues to go through the filtration systems, and then after that they add various treatment chemicals that such as fluoride that have known issues.
You wonder why Alex Jones said they're turning the freaking frogs gay with all of the stuff in the water. I'm pretty sure that a lot of the cancers and such, I mean, they're recycling our wastewater into what we're drinking. And unless that system is absolutely bomb-proof, guess what? That's all I have to say on this. Birth control, all the drugs that are going through they're just refeeding it back into us because they're not filtering it enough. They're getting the solids out and such by chemically using a chelation type thing where they bond and claw some of the solids out. But it is that's probably the wrong word for it, but it's close enough.
Flocculant.
What's that?
Flocculant.
And so they put, but those, the chemicals and the drugs that are really concerning, they're going right back into the drinking water, and all y'all are drinking this.
Well, and part of the problem there, I think, is that, as I understand it, several years ago, they mandated here in Michigan that they stop using underground sources for water systems. So the way that it's supposed to work here, and the way that it used to work, is that the water treatment systems would treat the water, and then they would discharge it into natural watersheds, not recycle it back into the drinking water system. And then they would draw the new water for the drinking water systems from deep wells.
Might I add, where Nestle is drawing all the water out of Michigan, they're taking the good water, putting it in plastic bottles, which are going to pull plastic into the water, and feeding that back to us.
So several years ago, instead of allowing for using that natural geological filtration mechanism that we've basically used since the beginning of mankind, more or less, they mandated only drawing water system sources off of surface water, which then has to be treated before it's put into the drinking water system. So now you've got wastewater being discharged into surface water systems, and then drinking water being drawn from supposedly clean and, not cross-contaminated surface water systems.
They lie, they lie, they lie.
Mm-hmm. I have one of the best filtration systems in the world, right? I have sand. I learned a lot when I had to put in a well on my property, and I didn't even have to do it. I just wanted to upgrade it because I was still on an old 25-foot deep, 2-inch well, which worked fine for me, but it was starting to have some issues. So I ended up putting a new well in, and I learned quite a bit, especially having to deal through the health department. No, not willingly, but I hired a contractor to put in a well. Contractors' licenses through Laura. Now they require permits and inspections. Such like that. But I didn't know how to do it, so I wanted to watch somebody do it just to see what it was like. Now I can do it myself. I don't need none of that. But I learned a lot then. And I remember doing a study when I was young, still in elementary school, about water filtration and understanding that in a survival concept, when you need fresh water, you find an area where there's moss, and you run the water across moss. And it's claimed that if you do that through 6 feet of live moss, the water will be drinkable at the end of it, right? How much more so when you're talking, hundreds of feet of sand, right? One of the common issues among townships, especially, is water supply. They have big issues with what they consider abandoned vehicles, right? People's personal property sitting out there, doing whatever. And I've talked to my township supervisor about this too, about how the vehicles will eventually break down, and they're going to end up leaking oil and a little bit of antifreeze into the soil, and that'll contaminate and get into the groundwater supply and get out to your neighbor's land. Like, listen, what a joke. What a joke, right? And I get it. Some people honestly believe that. But let me give you an example. On my property, uphill from my well, 275 feet away, right? Uphill, there was an old oil well. And this was back in 1954 through 57 before they closed it down. But what happened was the well casing broke when they were about a mile and a half down, and they pumped out, I don't know, tens of thousands of gallons of oil right out from under my property. But the well casing broke and started mixing in with the Marshall River that runs up through us. All right, so they were pumping out not only oil, but they were also pulling salt water or brine, and that was getting mixed in. And what they were doing was they would just dump it out. They would dump the mix out and try to separate the oil out of the water and save it that way. Well, they were caught, they were fined, and they ended up closing the thing down. But going through the records, there was over, was it 5,000 or 50,000 now? I forget. We'll call it 5. We'll just say the lower number. 5,000 gallons of mixed brine and oil that were dumped 275 foot away from my well, right? Uphill, through sand. My well was put in 1973 originally. There has been 0 water problems with my well. After 5,000 gallons of that mix across my property. Okay, tell me again how this whole cry for safety over well contamination is even valid. I mean, in Michigan, we have laws concerning this. And even all the regulations that go with the health department, right? Not law, but regulations that go with their codes and policies. Even in their own admission, they say that every individual has a right to water supply. Okay, that means even if you're in a village or a city and they claim that you have to hook up to their water supply, it is your right to provide water for yourselves. Dig your own well. Get out of their water supply. That's the best way that you can fight that issue. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough because they're going to come after you, guarantee, especially within a corporate city. But every person has that right. And I encourage everybody to exercise it because you have no idea what they're putting in your supply unless you're there, unless you're watching it, unless you know what each and everything does. You have 0 idea when you turn that faucet on and put it in a glass and drink it. Can you guarantee you know that water's safe? I can't. I won't even drink the water when we work in a lot of my work I do is in housing in cities and such, and I won't even drink the water down there. I will wait for hours until I get home before I will drink city water, just for that reason alone. Not because I'm scared it's going to kill me, but it's because I don't know what's in there, and I'm not willing to put that kind of detriment to my body in case there is something that maybe somebody along the assembly line has missed.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And we brought this up before, and I think I put sources on the show for being able to get equipment for a sandpoint well. Anybody really can put a sandpoint well in. That's, it's not like you need any big equipment or anything else like that. So I'm kind of a fan of people having sandpoint wells around their houses, just because what if all of a sudden the water supply goes either bad that you're used to, like what happened in Flint and in Benton Harbor and such. And I'm going to tell you right now, when they destabilized the water up in Flint, that was just because somebody didn't add a chemical. It was like about an $80 chemical to it to keep this stabilization of issues within the pipes. And where did that come from? Well, you can lead that right up to the Uniparty, because Snyder was involved in it. So was everybody else along the food chain there. They don't do anything altruistic, nothing. So you got to think it through. Anyhow, look at a sandpoint wells and the equipment.
Yeah, that's an important part. And one of the days I'm going to actually dig my own just to make sure I can do it. But until then, I have what's safe right now.
Well, let's go ahead. Ralph had to drop out. He said it kept freezing up on him. So let's talk about this plane issue, this jet issue that you brought up here, and out of control spending. I'm gonna throw something out here. I did file another lawsuit yesterday, and it's going to be fun. This is really going to be fun. I think I have 2 more that are going to be filed next week. The reach of these lawsuits are so incredibly large. I don't want to talk about them yet, but the reach and the players involved in these lawsuits are so enormous that you can't even. Oh, let's see. I've got 2 bills here. Hang on a minute. It's freezing up. There you go. Did I get you back on?
That was strange. I went to move one tab and the entire browser crashed and then came right back within 10 seconds.
Yeah, I had 2 bills there for a minute. So on the dashboard. So I got a feeling something or someone is messing with us this morning because they don't want information out there. And that's normal. Just watch. If I said the word China, guess what would happen? Repeatedly. China, China, China. So yeah, anyhow, the reach of some of these things that are going on within the state of Michigan, I'm going to drop this here. It's not just the elections and the voting systems, it's the energy sector, and who owns what in order to try to steal our natural resources. Why did they start Eagle? Answer that question for me for the DNR. That's all about energy and their pilfering of our state lands for the natural resources. Why is it that Nestle doesn't pay a royalty to the people of Michigan? Why does anything that they do go into trust funds, and the trust funds go into purchasing more land for the trust fund, which is a layering of the state and the state land? And who's attached to this? Which countries outside of the United States are attached to this? Oh, guess what, guys? We're getting this thing figured out. And I'm pretty extra sure that that they're getting it figured out a little bit. In fact, we saw something attached to one of the lawsuits that I filed in the last 2 weeks where they literally took down access to things that we're using as evidence. They're hiding it. But that's okay. We have some of it. We have it. We have it all. And they can't. They're 2 to 10 steps behind us at all times, which is kind of funny. I'm telling you right now that these people aren't particularly smart. So it's not too hard to beat them as long as you're willing to step forward and continue on and refuse to quit.
Yeah, you look at it, I mean, compare it to the standard, compare it to the truth, right? We have the Bible and the Constitution, the 2 rocks in which this republic rests. Compare it to those, and you'll have your answers. You'll be able to point it out, just like we talked about last week. But yeah, the issue here that you brought up, Donna, is it's more than just a plane that we're talking about. Most people have heard this, at least through the grapevine, that the country of Qatar has gifted a $400 million Boeing jet to the United States, namely directly to President Trump, even though President Trump says that he gets nothing and he gets to fly it like any other president would, right? The issue is more than just the plane here. But before that, if you look at the Constitution, you'll look in Article 1, Section 9, and it specifically states the last clause there that no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present, emolument, office or title or any kind whatsoever from any king, prince, or foreign state. Now that's pretty clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was not a gift from Qatar to our Congress, nor was it a gift from Qatar to the people of America, but it was directly brokered, I guess, for lack of a better word, through the office of president. Now,
do you know that though, Bill?
well,
And the reason I ask is I heard that it was in negotiations for about a year, so it's not a new issue. They're pretending to the public that it is, and then it's Trump specific, but I don't know.
it was just what I got out of what Trump had said when he was talking about it on interview, when he was specifically stating that only a fool would not accept the gift. Right? He was referencing a specific golfer, and I forget what his name was. But it was broadcasted in such a way by him that it was directed to him.
Yeah.
Now, he did mention on behalf of the country, right?
Mhm.
I'll give you credit for that. But it's, like I said, it's not just the plane and it's not just Trump here. This is the U.S. looking at accepting a $400 million gift from Qatar. Does anybody know anything about Qatar?
A little bit.
Right? Qatar is one of the largest funders of the Middle East terrorism. They give out millions to other Islamic nations. They give out millions to known terrorist groups out there. Right? One thing that the Prime Minister of Qatar had said, I think his name is Al Thani, is that pronounced right? I don't know. I'm not even going to guess his first name. I get it wrong every time. Last name is like El Thani or something. But he had spoken in an interview that it's just a very simple government-to-government dealing, right? $400 million, just a simple government-to-government dealing. But he says it's still under legal review. I don't know why it became so big as news. Well, I can tell you why it became so big, because our Constitution makes it very clear. It's not no small deal. He said, we have done a lot together with the U.S. And when an interviewer asked him about the buying influence within the United States, he said, why would we buy influence in the United States? If you look at the last 10 years of the U.S.-Qatar relationship, Qatar has always been there for the U.S. when it's needed. We believe this friendship needs to be mutually beneficial for both countries. It cannot be a one-way relationship. Let me tell you, the most beneficial point of this friendship is that Qatar funds the very necessary terrorists and terrorism groups that we need to continually, illegally and unconstitutionally declare war on other countries to take their resources. That's your country and government-to-government relationship that's going on here.
Well, here's another thing that seems to me to be like completely stupid is that you've got the president flying on a plane, on an aircraft made by a foreign country. Who knows if they sabotaged it? I mean, the security concerns there are huge. I mean, I that should have been like turned around on the signing of the deal, the one-sided signing of the deal before it even got to the United States. Who in their right mind would have agreed to this in any way, shape, or form? I'm just kind of shocked. Okay, so Ralph is chiming in here on the private chat. I'm going to read his comments because he can't come on because we're having technical problems. Part of the reason for Qatar to be involved is that Air Force One is based on the 747 platform, which is no longer manufactured. Qatar and the United Arab Emirates are two of the main places that still certify them. Not saying that's justified, but technical reasons, we would want a 747 for the Middle East. No, I don't think we want a 747, a jet, or anything from the Middle East. I don't want another country controlling our airspace. I mean, what have we learned, boys and girls, from the chips coming from China into the United States that basically planted spyware on every single one of our devices? Are you kidding me? They're going to have some sort of a jerry-rigged squirrel in the back compartment that's communicating with everybody across the world. Oh, guess what, guys? The president of the United States is right here. Please tune your missiles.
Well, so you're talking about a Trojan horse. And I think one of the congressmen made a point to a reporter who said, don't you think it's basic concept that we're going to strip the snot out of this thing, and it's not going to be, hey, we just accept it and we just start flying it and then put the president on it and everything's going to be fine.
Oh, no, and I trust that guy? No, I'm telling you right now, I'm not trusting that guy or anybody else that has to say that's in office right now. Are you kidding me? Oh, There's nothing to look at here. We'll strip it down. We'll make sure he's safe. These are the same people that have been attacking President Trump forever. Sorry, had to say it.
Yeah, and there's more you got to look at that too, because there's been a lot of reports now of other people within the staff that have been lobbyists for Qatar. Right? Pam Bondi, the Attorney General out of Florida, was named as one of those.
Oh my gosh, don't even get me started on her too. She's, we got a long list. I actually read something that was kind of encouraging this morning and I think you posted it, Karen, from Burning Bright, that President Trump isn't, I don't think he's real happy with Vance. I'm just going to say that right now. I think he's using him and this first string people that are in office. There's a mixture there, not necessarily people I would have picked to put there unless there was a secondary objective. But go back to the Qatar thing with Pam Bondi, Bill.
And so you have people within the administration who were lobbying in Congress on behalf of Qatar interests, right? This is not that long ago. And then you have a gift from Qatar to the United States in that kind of amount. You have to wonder what's being done behind closed doors here, because I see a bribe coming through. I see Qatar as persuading the U.S. specifically to either help fight their interests or either to give them more money or even military supplies to do what they want to do out there. It's just one of the things. You look to the scriptures. What does it say about gifts, right? Proverbs was one of those when it says a wicked man taketh a gift out of the bosom to pervert the ways of judgment, right? When you're in a position like government administration, I don't care what level it is, you don't take gifts. It's a very, very touchy subject. And I'm not saying the gift in itself is wrong. It's the fact that somebody holding an office would accept a gift, because the people are going to look at that and say, well, who's buying you off? Mm-hmm. Right? It creates confusion. It opens up the doors for things that you don't want to be charged with, right? I hold an office. I understand that. I will never take something from my constituents that I serve, ever. Never will. I don't care how small it is, right? You're not even going to buy me a tank of gas if you're going to send me out to go do something. Another instance of that, just recently at a meeting, we had paperwork that wasn't filed for the public to see before the meeting. Right? Stupid, simple thing. If they're not informed, how are they supposed to address the board? So we addressed that at the meeting. But when I was talking to him beforehand, I told him, I was like, hey, you're right down the road from me. It's like, let me print all this off for you. I'll come down and give it to you, or you can come by and pick it up. That's no problem. Right? And he understands this too. And he even said, no, that's not your job to do. I was like, it all comes with part of the office, right? It's the giving of ourselves for the general welfare of the people. Simple as that. When you start accepting gifts, it can be named as a bribe, and the people are going to see it that way, right? Another thing that Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes, when he was saying that surely oppression maketh a wise man mad, and a gift destroyeth the heart. Right? Gifts will pull strings. And it may not necessarily be meant that way, but they can be used for future, right? Say, I've got leverage over you. Remember this? Remember what I did for you here? Mm-hmm. How about you just help me out in this regard? I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, kind of thing. That's not the way government works. We're a republic. We're founded on law, right? You do this or else. You don't do this or else. It's one of those issues. Where's the other one I was going to bring?
Here, let's talk about an ethics issue here in a case study. I had that when I was running for governor all the time. That sort of thing. And a very small example of that was there was a gentleman that owned a store, and I came there and we talked for a while. He's pretty involved in politics, and he wanted to send me home with a very expensive bottle of whiskey. And I told him, I said, and I didn't want to insult him. So what I said is, I said, I tell you what, I said, I appreciate your generosity and such. So how about this? I'll buy the whiskey. And if you want to, I'm not here to compromise your business or for you to do favors for me. I said, how about I buy that bottle, and then you want to give one to one of your patrons, give a bottle to them, and we'll bless everybody along the chain. So that's kind of an elegant way, in my opinion, of dealing with this sort of thing. If somebody's trying to do things from the heart, but at the base level is the accepting of bribes or gifts is going to end poorly, no matter who's involved.
Yeah.
This could be one of those times where Trump is spurring a conversation. And he'll do it as long as it takes. You know, the Greenland thing, I haven't heard anything about that for a while. I haven't heard anything about Canada becoming another state for a while. But there was a time there for weeks he was going on and on and on about it. So there are times where he will stick to his subject kind of like glue and wait. I think he's kind of gauging, are people picking up on this? Are they debating it in the public eye? Okay, good. They're on it. You know, there's Bill Mohr talking about the Constitution again. That's good. He's talking about whether a president should receive these things. Okay, it's time to move on to the next subject. What else have we got to teach these people?
Okay, Ralph the Mute just chimed in. Yes, I assume it's going to be acquired effectively as parts donor for keeping the existing planes flying, and I believe 747s were also one of the last planes with enough redundancy to withstand an EMP due to prevalence of fly-by-wire in modern aircraft.
Yeah, that's a big issue as well. Something that I don't even consider. I remember when the whole fly-by-wire and drive-by-wire thing became popular. I actually owned a vehicle that had that, and I was really reluctant at first. And nowadays, it's everywhere, so it's understandable. But that's always a concern, is that we don't know exactly how far these things will be taken in the near future, right? A lot of people will even deny the existence of EMPs yet. However, I mean, you can see it, and you can actually exercise it or practice it in your own home in small scale. And if I can do it in small scale, governments can do it in large scale, right? That's pretty common sense. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, to figure these things out. But I question why we even have, what Trump would even call a palace in the sky, right? Why do we have such an extravagant Air Force One anyway? Is not the president the commander in chief of the military in times of service? I mean, I'm just thinking, this is Bill Mohr out here. God forbid I ever get promoted to such an office. But if I was in that position, let me fly with the old clunkers that we have to put our military servicemen on, because I'm not above them. They are above me. Right? Put me in those old jets, the rickety ones, the noisy ones. Right? I don't need luxury. I don't need comfort. I'm here to do a job. That's the way I look at all government offices. Right? Why do we have legislatures with their own personalized custom office buildings that we pay for? Why do they have their own staff that we pay for?
Why did they get a budget? This is another problem with the incumbents. Why do they get a large budget for communicating? I think it's $1 million or more per person in our legislature for communicating with their constituents, including radio and TV ads, which they use a lot, excuse me, for campaigning for themselves to get reelected. That's an unfair advantage.
Yeah, one of the things, and Donna, you weren't around to hear all this, but one of the things, if you remember Joe Sanger,
yeah, of course,
one of the things he used to say all the time is that we need to do away with all of the emoluments that we give to the legislators. We need to do away with all the office buildings, with all the fancy stuff that we give them, right? The luxuries of office. And we need to give them an old wooden desk and a pencil, because that's all they need to do their job. The rest of it's on them. And a lot of people will argue with me saying, well, if you do that, then it keeps normal people from being able to run for office and only opens it up to the rich people who can afford not to work while they're in office. Well, hold on a minute, because who says that we need a full-time legislature?
Right.
First and foremost, why are they there the majority of the time talking about majority unconstitutional bills? Right?
2,000 bills, over 2,000 bills goes through our Michigan legislature every year. If you think they're reading even the first paragraph of those bills themselves, I got a lot of news for you. It goes from the lobbyists to their aides and says you're supposed to vote this way. They're not even thinking through things. They just show up and want to be the big shots that walk in the room. They spend 5-10 minutes, yammering about how great they are, and then they walk out.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I would like to see. I would like to see a part-time legislature completely, just in the summertime, right? Just happen in the summertime, about 21 days out of an entire year is all I want to have to pay you for. If you can't do your business, if you can't regulate the government properly and enforce the existing laws that are based on our Constitution and common law, if you can't do that in 21 full days, get out.
I'm going to modify that. I think they have to be traveling in summer and in winter for maybe a week at a time. And they've got to drive it to see how bad the roads are.
I would give them the benefit of the doubt because I like to spend winters in my home with my family.
No, I want them to drive the roads to see how well they're doing.
Yeah, that would be a good point as well.
Well, I saw yesterday, I think Trump's big, beautiful bill is something like 1,600 pages. So there was all this talk a long time ago. Well, not that long ago. It was early in his term, I think. Maybe it was last year, about a bill that was like, what was it, 5,000 pages. And he wanted to trim it down. And he kept encouraging people, and the Republicans worked, and they finally got it down to, I don't know, 200 or whatever it was. And here he is with a big, beautiful bill, 1,600 pages. It's a ridiculous number, and it's like, okay, we haven't improved anything. And so, of course, the media is attaching to specific concepts that are in the bill that they can pick on or talk about. But what about all the other stuff? Big and beautiful, he says. Well, maybe this is another one of those opportunities where we go, President Trump, that's not what we elected you for. We don't want to see this. Put it in different bills. Have a big, beautiful bill package that we can see. We can read each page. And decide if we like a piece at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Pertaining to the title. And everyone in the legislature has to sit through the reading because I don't think they can read most of them. And then, and vote on, one issue. Clear, concise, to the point. And if they have to go up for a 5-minute bathroom break, they can't vote. They have to sit through the entire thing or gone.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that the states have left off as well. When they promote bills up on the floor, they consider reading the bill just in title only, right? And you can watch them. I mean, go to your state legislatures and watch the live stream when they talk about bills. It's ridiculous. In Michigan, they specifically have to read out the bills twice at a certain time, right? So what do? They read out the title and then they repeat the title again. And that's it.
And you know what? They're so rude in those sessions that you cannot even hear what's being read most of the time. It's like being in a whole room of fourth graders on Red Bull. They're like twisting in their chair. They're tapping their pencil. They're like shooting stuff at the people next to them and such. They're not serious about this.
Yep. I like.
I can tell you.
Go ahead, Karen.
And you guys probably know this too, because I know that you work. Just take for example the resolutions, and having been in the assembly, I know when we have worked on a document of any length of time, any length of a document, that when you read something, the idea being 3 times, that was the rule. You have to read it 3 times. There's always going to be something that somebody finds in it. Now, I tend to be a grammarian. I notice punctuation issues. Those are the first things that jump out at me. But there's also language issues. Things like, for example, citizen. It's one of those things that kind of makes me go, oh, well, have we defined that properly enough for this usage? You know, are we using the right terminology? Are we using run-on sentences? Are the commas placed in the right placement means something different? And is this the point that we want to make? You know, I'm looking at, you can look at little details and then suddenly a big concept jumps out at you that maybe this isn't what we want because it could be misused in such a way. Reading something also brings forward a lot that you might miss if you don't read it aloud. When you do read it aloud, suddenly it changes shape. But it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort when you have a group of people where you might have 5 people that notice things, or you might have 15 that say something about it. It takes a lot of time. And I'm sure you guys can understand this, even with a few people working on a 1-page document. It can be a trial. But that's what we went through with the Constitution too. So,
well, we've done that with the Constitution Party in Michigan here too, where we're working on resolutions and we're working on all sorts of things. You get a bunch of us that are in there that actually have read the Constitution, and it becomes a very, how shall I say it, interesting discussion.
Yeah. I bet.
Yeah, a perfect example of what Karen's talking about. And I love this one because I had somebody come out and try to chew me out on this issue. Just regarding punctuation. You know, our framers were very careful in how they laid things out and how they set up the grammar, and especially where they put punctuation points, right? One of the ones that I love, like I said, some guy wanted to try to chew me out for this. When talking about assemblies, all right, he tried to argue the point that the people cannot just have huge, large assemblies when they want to in public, but that they can only have assemblies to petition the government for redress of grievance, right? And I'd never heard that before. And so what do? You go to the Constitution. Let's see exactly what it says, right?
Yep.
The First Amendment makes it very clear. It's the right of the people here, right? Not a government grant. It's a God-given right of the people. What is Congress's shall not here? It says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, comma, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, semicolon, or abridging the freedom of speech, comma, or of the press, semicolon. So we've got 2 subjects already talked about, right? You have religion and exercise, and then you have speech and the press, right? 2 separate ones, all tied to the thou shalt not make any law. But also it says, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Oh, wait a minute. I missed a comma there. The right of the people to peaceably assemble, comma, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Now, are those 2 separate things tied to the same topic? To make this point, I'm going to go back to the freedom of speech in the press, right? Because to say that you only have the right to assemble to petition the government for redress of grievance, even having that comma in there, you have to apply it to the other 2 topics as well, which means you only have the right to the freedom of speech if it's part of the press, or you only have the right to religion if you're exercising it freely. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I see what you're
right? So when you start breaking things down like that, and I'm not a big grammar guy, I see things for how they are. And if I don't understand it, well, then I got something to learn. Yay. Right? I like learning, but I don't like the struggles in doing it. It's part of life. Get over it. Suck it up, right? So when this guy came to me, I just laid this out for him. You know, never seeing it this way before, I had to break it down. You look at it, it makes sense. Yeah, you have the right to peaceably assemble. And you have the right to petition the government for redress of grievance. Right? You can do both, or you can do either or. They're just as separate as speech and press. They're just as separate as religion and exercise. Right? You can do both, or you can do either or. But they're tied together in that topic. Right? So what I told him and what I published out to the public when he tried to call me out publicly for it, this was during the 2021 riots and everything. This is one of those things. Black commas matter, people.
Yep.
Right? They're there for a reason. And you can take that to every one of the articles in the Bill of Rights as well, especially the Second Amendment, right? It applies there just as much as the First or the Fourth or the Fifth or anything else you want to talk about. But you have to break things down. If we don't understand it, we have no way to apply it, right? You can have much knowledge and be a complete fool on this earth. If you don't have the wisdom to exercise your knowledge, it's worthless to you. It's a bunch of stuff locked in your head, right? We have to actually have the wisdom to know how to apply what we know is right. Make sense?
Yes, and this is where also the concept biblically of the parts of the body, the hand and the feet. Everybody has a gift. And I might see the commas more than other people. You might see the Constitution more than other people. That is the beauty of the assembly. That's one of the positive things I learned from my assembly experience. Everybody had, there are people who don't have the same level of intelligence. Some are more, some are less. And so sometimes it's natural for us to discriminate against people who have a lesser sort of intelligence. Maybe it's an IQ, maybe it's common sense. But what I notice is that those people still have other gifts. So we should never frown upon other people or judge them as less worthy or less valuable to a body, because there are times where those types of people are the ones that bring forward an idea that nobody else is thinking of, which is extremely valuable. That is a gift to an assembly body of any form. And that's one of the things I love about it. When you give everybody that free voice, then you can learn more from the gifts of everybody.
Well, one step further than that, too, is that sometimes the greatest bits of wisdom comes from the person who is the least informed in the room. Because what I find is that, all of us have our biases. So we can be experts in certain things that we know a lot about. But when we listen to everyone, we're opening up ourselves to listen to the very even voice of God coming through the least expected channel. And I think that that's something that has been a great disservice, that the colleges, the institutions have changed. Not only have they taken God out of our education and out of things, but they've created self-styled gurus for us to worship and try to fix the problem experts. But they may be so caught up in their own biases, and we all do it. There's not one person that will talk to me that I will believe that they don't have personal biases, because they do. Because they're based on what we know and our experiences. And we literally build cases in our head to justify what we think. And then we look for sources. This is human nature. It's hard to get over this. You can break yourself of it, but we look for things to reinforce our biases.
That is why we are set up the way we are, because as the scripture says, in a multitude of counselors there is safety. Right?
Watch the person who's not really paying attention to the meeting in the room. I always say the one who's the quietest in the room is the one, I'll guarantee you every time, is really in charge, because they'll be working behind the scenes and actually, and sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for bad reasons, but that's the person to watch. And the person who's kind of sort of maybe paying attention to the meeting but is distracted about things, they may be taking things in a different type of intelligence than the other people in the room. And their mind maybe not caught up in the goal, but picking up on things that nobody else in the room is even thinking about, and saying, hey, wait a minute, isn't this something? And they'll pull something out that's totally random.
Yep.
And if you give them a chance to talk through it, and they will connect it in ways that the experts will never have thought of.
Yep. And often that will be the spiritual concept.
Correct.
That everybody who is getting bogged down in the details of other things will totally miss.
Or the goals that they have set up in their head. They'll watch people, they'll have their personal goals set up. That's not necessarily the same as God-given wisdom, discernment, path, or goals, because they've got it set up in their head. It may be for self-interest. It may be for ego to reinforce that they've been right all along. And all of a sudden, somebody comes along, has no idea the significance of what they said, maybe feels like their voice shouldn't be heard because they're on the outside of those who know. And that person may have more wisdom than every single person sitting in the room.
Mm-hmm.
We're really going to have to break ourselves of this in the idolatry and hero worship that I see in just about every area of the world here, and in our world, our processes, our institutions, our groups, even in our families, that those biases that we want to reinforce because it's comfortable, and having a new personal savior or a new issue that's going to save us, a new layer. Let's layer on Axe My Tax. I've been beating up on that every day, and do I have a bunch of information there. Doesn't mean it's totally wrong. We shouldn't have property taxes. However, those of us who are against property taxes, what do you think is going to happen? The evil forces that are out there are going to just put just enough truth in it to twist it to lead everybody who's not really paying attention astray. And then they're going to have a new savior that pushes this. Oh, this person's going to do all the work for me. I can just get behind them. Now, sometimes that is valid, but if it's being pushed by our own ego and biases, it's going to lead us astray, and they're counting on that.
Yeah. Does everybody remember the Citizens Redistricting Committee?
Yeah.
And how big that was pushed to get that constitutional amendment in place, and what happened on it? They knuckled down, and now the majority of their picks, they get to determine the committee. And I mean, they, by the government hands that are currently involved. It did very little for the people. It strengthened the hand of government to continue gerrymandering under lawful authority, they claim. Right? The same thing would happen with the Axe My Tax petition. Right? Read through the language, understand where the money goes, where it's coming from. It doesn't eliminate the funding. It doesn't eliminate the problem. I agree. It may protect some individuals in their housing and such, right? But that's not the government's job to begin with, right? Let me tell you what, if we got a widow in our assemblies out here, in my local assemblies, if there's a widow that's in danger of losing her house over property tax, guess what? There's 30 men who are going to chip in and say, nah, we got you. Don't worry about it. Whose job is it? It's the people's job. It's not government's job to deal with this. If you want to get rid of your property taxes, go to the people collecting it, right? Who is that? It's not your state. It's not your county. It's your townships and your cities who are actually sending you that bill. And by the way, the bill is not in US dollars, right? Go after them, because if they decide they don't want to collect it anymore because it's unconstitutional or illegal, guess what? Now you got a fight on your hand between states and the townships, but you can rally your townships in that manner, right? We're working on it slowly but surely, but you've got to have constitutionally minded people who are willing to uphold the law and willing to actually be in that fight before you're ever going to pull off anything in removing property taxes.
Well,
In the
what I'm going to
meantime,
tell
take
you
care
right
of your
now
widow.
is that they will split off a group of people to use them as a victim mindset and use them to say, that's right, we shouldn't have property taxes. They're right. But they've given them a victim status of unlawful property taxes in order to betray the entire state. And I've been saying this for a long time. I have been compiling proof on this. BlackRock has been picking up single family homes, 600,000 of them, and has a $5 billion tax liability that they're trying to get out from underneath. And they're trying to make people paying property taxes as the victim. And we've got our one solution to solve this problem. But the problem is they crafted the solution. And so it is not about getting rid of property taxes. It's about distributing them through other sources. They're not going to get rid of any taxes. And property owners right now are being used by unscrupulous people, of whom BlackRock will pick out realtors and people that are involved in real estate to push this stuff. And that's exactly what they've done in Michigan. I'm telling you right now, they're going after the property at large and just using property taxes. And I'm going to say it. I own a lot of property. I own a lot. I have the most to stand to win of a person, a citizen. I know you're going to choke on that. In Michigan, I have more to gain by this going through than pretty much anybody I know who owns property, because I own a lot of property. I am going to stand here on the fact that Axe My Tax would work beautifully for Donna Brandenburg if I was out for self-interest. It would absolutely get me out from underneath property taxes. And if I told you what I actually pay in property taxes from all the houses and all the buildings I own in the city of Grand Rapids and such, you'd be shocked. But I'm going to stand here on the basis of principle, and on this is wrong, and it's misleading the people of Michigan. And that tax is just going to absolutely destroy everyone. So I would rather do it the right way, keep it the same and do it the right way, than partake in their lies to you that this is going to help overall. It is as Ralph said, it is a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. That gushing wound is so egregious in the taxation of the people in Michigan that Band-Aid is going to be so irrelevant, it isn't going to matter. And if the people out there pass this, don't come crying to me about the fact that they come at us in a different direction, because that's always been the goal. And I've been pretty vociferous over this. I will continue to be, even at my own detriment, personally, because I refuse unjust gain. I'm not going to do it, even if it hurts me. I personally, by not jumping on to their little extortion bandwagon for BlackRock. I won't do it. I'll pay the unconstitutional taxes that are to my detriment, and I'm not going to take the easy way out on this, because it's going to come back in a way that is devastating to this state and the people, all the people. And shame on Carla Wagner and all these people that recycle. They recycle from one issue to another. That's exactly what they're doing, because they are professional. They're professionals at coming up with more nonsense. And it's like, who's behind all of it? That they keep regurgitating and they keep reincarnating into a different area to try to take down the people. I'm going to tell you what, if you're not talking about this and you're watching the show today and you're saying, oh, but Donna, don't you want to save people who are going to lose their homes? Oh, there's your emotional hook. You can shove it, because I'm not dumb enough to buy into this nonsense. And lollipops for children. With that said, I digress. I'm going to bring Greg on for just a minute with you guys, and then any last words, or any of you that want to leave, we're gonna put up. Oh, guess what? Ralph put up the Axe My Tax, and Bill and I can talk about the incredibly rude presentation that Carla Wagner made to the U.S. Taxpayers Party, which is the Constitution Party. I had to tell her, I think you're done, because she would not stop talking, and she came in and pretty much tried to take the meeting over. And I personally excused her. And when she came up with this nonsense, we had 3 pages of donations this person had made. This is not a casual. I've never been in politics. I've never participated, amongst other things. The facts don't line up. And the facts with BlackRock, I'm telling you, it's there. So anyhow, welcome, Greg.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Awesome.
Discussion.
Yeah, we're all friends, so we kind of get out there and tear it up as friends would. Well, the only thing missing is either a cup of coffee or a stein of beer here, but I digress.
It's powerful.
So any last words that Karen, Bill, or Ralph that you want to jump off on today? And I'm just going to bring Greg on because we got an important thing to talk about, a Supreme Court decision that's going to change the landscape of the United States, I believe. So last words, you got 30 seconds, and I'm going to go.
I will be quick. I keep thinking from time to time throughout today so far, I keep going back to this line from an old movie, Soylent Green is people, because it covers so many bases. When the government is stealing from you, hiding from you, using you, and poisoning you, and using all of those things to continually abuse you, it's the same thing. Whether it's Soylent Green or something else, it's all the same thing. But so that's kind of how the sci-fi part of Karen's brain works.
You're not wrong. So there you go. I mean, how much human meat are really in the burgers? They've already found it.
Yeah, they say necessity is the mother of invention, right? Well, necessity is also the tool by which tyrants infringe upon the people, right? There's a quote on that, but it wouldn't come to mind when I was saying it. So it is what it is. When we talk about things like widows losing their homes and Axe My Tax and such like that, I mentioned it. It's like, you people, you have to step up and take care of them, right? That is a command given by your Creator. You take care of your widows and orphans, those in need, because if you don't and they cry out to God, God's going to visit that upon your head, right? Paul, when he wrote to Timothy, made that very clear in 1 Timothy 5:8. He said, if a man provide not for his own, especially those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So everybody talking about this issue of widows specifically, right? That was the big cry in Axe My Tax. It's widows that are going to lose their homes because they can't afford their property tax. What are you doing to stop it?
Yeah.
I will gather my militia and surround the house and chase off the enemies that seek to tear her from her own homestead, or I'll pay the tax. One of the two. But as long as it's on my watch, there's no widow in my assembly where the government's going to come and torture her because of it. It's not going to happen. Get me riled up.
Well, but that's a good thing to be riled up on. And then I'm going to go one step further. Any of the brown shirt mentality idiots out there that call the state or the county or the city or whatever on someone, you're going to be having a bad day facing God Almighty. You can sit there and be a snippy little self-righteous snowflake all you want, but this is not going to end well for anyone. When we allow them to weaponize us against our families, our friends, our neighbors, This isn't what we do. We get in there and do something. A call doesn't count. Sitting on a podium, talking and talking and talking, but doing nothing. Republican Party, Democrat Party, you're all a bunch of frauds. You talk. You fundraise to have a great big old party, but you don't do a thing. Not a thing has changed. It was the same thing as voting in Biden. He's a dinosaur. He's been in office since the third day of creation, because I'm pretty sure he crawled out of the swamp. Okay. So we're going to go back to that. And it's like, and things are going to change. They're not going to change unless we jump off the bias, the programming, what they tell us to do that makes us acceptable. I'm about ready to tell everybody you need to get a rebel badge here. And I don't mean like the rebel is in the South, but a rebel as in being an American and standing on that in service to God, family, and country. That's it. That's it. And with that said, we're going to go for a 1 minute break. And then poof, Karen, Bill, and Ralph disappear. And I'm back on with Greg. See you in a minute. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg. It's the 21st day of May 2025, and I'm on with Greg Martini. How you doing, Greg?
Awesome. Great day. Great day.
Great day. So what are we going to talk about today? You have a lot to talk about, and I'm thankful for you coming on. And I got to say, I'm thankful for everyone who has, really joined into the fight, doing something, and the people that you are working with and assembling with are doing a really great job with all these notices and such. And I just got to say, I wish I could name all the names that are out there and that have been working on this, but you're all heroes in my book, and I appreciate every single thing you all do.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Obviously, we're doing it for our Father and because of our Father. So we all have a common theme, and the knowledge and wisdom that he's given us through the people that are involved in the movement. I think Karen said it very well. I mean, we're a body, and we are a body that's been put together with all the different pieces, and all of us have such a wide range of skills and gifts that we've been blessed with, and bringing them together is powerful. And we're educating each other on a daily basis, and we're getting remedy, we're getting victory. This is one of those weeks. There's so much to talk about. I mean, we finished last week going through that notice. That notice is extremely important. It was a sheriff's notice. We need control of our grand juries. We need to get our government back in control by we the people. And the way to do that, and the remedy that we have is through notices and affidavits, and using our separation of powers in the judicial system to our benefit. So those are some of the things we'll talk about today.
All right. So what happened last night that was so pivotal for the United States? And is there anything you want me to pull up on that?
There is. I have sent you a case that the Supreme Court decided yesterday, and we went through it last night on about a 5.5 hour X Spaces with our group. and it was powerful because it's a long time in coming to get all these remedies, but this one in particular is important to read and understand and know what's happened.
Did you send it this morning?
I did send it this morning. I sent you 2 different emails, so you should have both of them. The first one I sent you is the one we should pull up. I sent you the second one more for your notes. The first one's the actual case, and I'm going to talk a little bit about just that case just to begin with. But before I do that, I do want to say one thing about last week and grand juries and sheriffs, because this week with Kash Patel and Dan Bongino doing interviews with Maria Bartiromo and Tucker Carlson and several others, I think it's important for us to understand. I mean, the FBI and our servants, they're not there to do the job of we the people. We the people have to do the job of we the people. And part of that job is taking control of grand juries through our sheriffs and through our local communities so that we're not relying on Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi or anyone else for that matter. When they have a situation, in order for us not to have lawfare, we need proper, separation of powers. And they're not responsible for investigating Epstein. The grand jury's responsible for that investigation. So we need to sit those grand juries, and we need to direct them by we the people with notices and affidavits. So I digress a little bit only because I felt that was an important piece of what I wanted to talk about up until this decision that came down yesterday.
That's awesome. So let's just dive into it then. I can put it up on screen here, and then we're just going to dive into it. Okay.
And this is the dissenting opinion from Justice Jackson. And before I talk about it, just so I can let people kind of know what this case is. This case is a woman by the name of Laurel Libby, and she is a representative in Maine. And she had a Facebook post discussing, transgender and apparently, it showed some photos of transgender boys that were competing in girls sports that the prior year were competing in boys sports, placed fairly high. And then they went to girls sports and they actually won. Surprise, surprise. I mean, it's the age old, male versus female. And I don't really want to get into that discussion, but because of what she posted, the tyranny that our legislators live under, she was sanctioned by the sitting House of Representatives speaker. And she was sanctioned, and basically her voice was completely silenced as a result. Well, when you think about that in general, when your voice can be silenced, if the House Speaker, whoever it is, whatever party it is, I could care less, if we weren't so politically motivated today, that may not, be an issue if someone has a real issue. But this is freedom of speech, and she's got the right to have her Facebook and give speech based upon her views, because those are the views that the people elected. So, and I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of whether that case is legitimate, illegitimate. It really is irrelevant. What's relevant is the fact that they silenced her voice with no due process of law, with nothing except the House Speaker basically taking a vote of the Assembly and setting her to the side. And so she, along with several other members of the House, immediately filed in the first Federal Circuit, and she filed for injunctive relief. Now you can pull up the actual opinion. The reason this opinion is so amazing, this was an 8-1 decision. After she filed, along with the other participants of this case as plaintiff, she immediately then filed a writ of certiorari with the Supreme Court of the United States, which is kind of interesting. And Part of what our government has done to us in the judiciary all along, I mean, from the lower courts all the way up to the Supreme Court, is they've created these rules of procedure. And they've created these rules for a reason. It's to keep us out of the system. It's to keep us from winning and getting remedy. It's to keep us from having a voice. And it's to pronounce their voice. Because if they're the ones that get to decide which cases are heard, which cases aren't heard, which ones actually go through, and a judge who is not a judge, who's a magistrate, and really he's a fake judge to begin with. I mean, Neil Gorsuch identified them appropriately as not true judges. But if he gets to decide the law and the jury only gets to decide the facts, well, it's pretty much the government's going to win 97% of the time or more. That's an unfair system. So immediately upon filing in the first district, they filed a writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court, and I'd like to just read certain parts of it. So let's go down to the, well, you're on the first page. The application for injunction pending appeal presumed by Justice Jackson and by her referred to the court is granted pending disposition of the appeal of the United States Court of Appeal at the First Circuit and disposition of the petition for a writ of certiorari. So Judge Jackson clearly wants to keep the current system that's in place. And throughout this opinion, she's going to give all these rules, not constitutional items. She's going to give these rules that basically prevent anyone from getting remedy. Now, the interesting thing is, remember, this is not one of we the people as she's filing in this case. She is a trustee. So she is a servant of the people, which I think is even more profound because the Supreme Court took this case and decided it within a very short period of time of receiving the case because the people need remedy and we need it immediately. And the Supreme Court, you didn't hear the Supreme Court talk about writs until the last several months, and you're starting to hear it more and more. This is just one of the many writs that our group has filed with, and we didn't file this one, but we filed others with the Supreme Court of the U.S. Because if we don't have remedy, I mean, directly from the Supreme Court, we won't get remedy at all. So let's go down to the meat of this. The other thing that's interesting to note on the first page there is that for the first time, numerous times throughout this opinion, Judge Jackson speaks of discussions that occurred in chambers. So I don't care whether the Supreme Court is in session, out of session, on vacation, whatever it is, if they get writs that are filed in the court, any one of the justices can decide on that writ. So we need remedy and we need it immediately. We don't want to sit and wait for, lower courts to create all, which is what attorneys are doing nowadays, is just, court shopping to find the judge that they can find that's going to give someone an injunction. When you get an injunction against you and you file a writ of certiorari to the Supreme Court of the United States, because that injunction is an unfair, unconstitutional injunction, you need remedy immediately. Not tomorrow, not the next day. You need it immediately. And that's what this gave them in an 8-1 decision. So let's go to the bottom of page 1, going into page 2. We have long recognized, the last sentence on the bottom of page 1, we have long recognized that this injunction relief is appropriate only when critical and exigent circumstances exist necessitating intervention in aid of our jurisdiction and the applicant's entitlement to relief is indisputably clear. I can tell you, our group, this is ridiculous. I mean, if someone needs injunctive relief, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's that mother that her children have been taken from her. If she needs relief, she needs to be able to file a writ with the Supreme Court because she's not getting relief, and the Supreme Court has already identified all of these courts as basically unconstitutional courts. So in order for that mother to get relief, she has to be able to file a writ of habeas corpus directly with the Supreme Court if she's not going to get it at the lower courts. And right now, these federal district courts are not, obviously, and this is the first district, giving immediate relief. This person should have gotten relief at the federal district court. Shouldn't have had to go to the Supreme Court. But until we educate our court system and until we get rid of the last 150 years that's been hidden, the truth has been hidden from we the people, we need to go directly to the Supreme Court because they have flipped, they understand, and have decided numerous cases which are going back to fundamental common law and giving the people their rights back. And rights are much more senior than this trustee, which is fighting a privilege. So let's go to the middle of the page. Second, remember, these are Judge Jackson's words. The applicants have not satisfied our normal certiorari factors, such as demonstrating the need to resolve a circuit split. Again, she's trying to take us back into Supreme Court not giving remedy immediately when remedy is needed. This Miss Libby was already put in a position where she no longer could hold her seat and do her job in her elected position. So she needed immediately relief. She didn't need the lower court, which set a hearing for 2 weeks into the future, and who knows how long they would have taken to decide that case. She needed immediate relief, and she received it at the United States Supreme Court under this writ. But yet, Judge Jackson, who is one of the more liberal judges on the court, knows the system that's been in place, knows how much the Supreme Court as well as the federal district courts have blocked people that are trying to get remedy, even for justifiable cases. Obviously, you filed numerous cases, and if you're not getting remedy at the lower court because they're putting you through a ridiculous amount of rules and regulations that are rules of civil procedure, all they're doing is trying to delay the process and keep you in a courtroom for, months, if not years. So who knows how long this case could have taken. They could have fought this case and just kept fighting it for a period of time. So instead, they request highly fact-specific error correction concerning a question of first impression that is unlikely to reoccur. All of this really shouldn't matter. I mean, she was an elected official. She gave her opinion. She's not, whether her opinion is the majority or the minority should not matter. It's not like she was attacking anyone individually. She was standing up for what her electorates put her in office to do. So they knew what her position was before they elected her. So all of this is just a ruse in order for Judge Jackson to object to the 8-1 decision. This decision actually gets better as you go down the page. Let's go to page number 3. Her third item, these applicants have failed to demonstrate that the right to this relief is indisputably clear. So there are 4 items that you must meet in order to get a writ and get injunctive relief from a court. And what she's identifying here are these rules that pertain to those 4 items. So again, these are the rules of the Maine House of Representatives. These are, arbitrary rules. They're set by the majority. They vote on them. And at the end of the day, Miss Libby still has the right to her constitutional right to free speech. So she was being penalized by her Facebook post. And she was put in a position where they effectively removed her from her role in the House. Let's go to the next paragraph. Whether the House censure and resulting sanctions violate Libby's constitutional rights or those of her constituents raises many different questions. Well, it may. But those are questions that need to be answered prior to her being sanctioned and put on effectively administrative leave. So does it violate a representative's First Amendment right to be subject to sanctions under such rules? And does it make a difference what the sanction is? And it should not make a difference if it's freedom of speech. She has a constitutional right, even as a trustee, she has a constitutional right to that freedom of speech. Only because I know we have a limited amount of time, I'm not going to read every bit of this, although you can post this and allow people to go back and read it. Let's go to the next page. The second paragraph, beginning with, but in the absence of binding precedent on any of these issues, their right to relief is not clear, let alone indisputably so. So it really shouldn't matter what Judge Jackson feels. This is her opinion. Clearly, in an 8-1 decision, whatever's happening behind closed doors in judges' chambers, she's being told by the other 8, this is a constitutional right. This has nothing to do with opinions. And these are opinions that she's basically citing, which were set up as rules in their rules of procedure. Not very long ago, this court treaded carefully with respect to exercising its equitable power to issue injunctive relief at the request of a party claiming an emergency. Obviously, this was an emergency. She was being prohibited from doing her job. The opinions are legion in which individual justices reviewing such request in chambers declined to intervene, reiterating that such power should be used sparingly and only in the most critical and exigent circumstances. Well, if your rights are being squashed, and that's exactly what this case is about, you're right. That case has to be determined before those rights are removed from her. I mean, she has the right to be innocent until proven guilty. She didn't even get the opportunity to prove herself guilty. I mean, they literally just removed her from her position until this writ of certiorari was approved by the Supreme Court. I love this next paragraph at the end. Those days are no more. Clearly, the Supreme Court has flipped. The Supreme Court is now accepting from these cases and deciding these cases in a very short time frame. This is not the first writ of certiorari that they've decided in the past 30 days. And I believe they're going to have an abundance of them filed at the courthouse. And I don't care how busy they are. They've got plenty of ability to add as many judges as they need to, address and answer all of these writs that are going to be filed, because the injustice that's been happening in this country for 100 years is ridiculous. And they've already admitted it. So we have a court system that needs to be basically put back to what it was. And that's the fundamental common law, is the law of the land. And we know it. It's in the Constitution. And all they keep doing now is going back to the Constitution and living up to the Constitution. And the Supreme Court's flipped. Now we need the rest of the court system to flip as well. So I love the fact that she is identifying these days are no more. It opts instead to dole out the error correction as it sees fit, regardless of the lack of any exigency, and even when the applicant's claim raise significant legal issues that warrant thorough evaluation by the lower courts that are dutifully considering them. Well, that's the way the system should be. I mean, we are not guilty immediately until we prove ourselves innocent. That's the statutory system they put us under. That statutory system and our ability to operate under it, you've got to prove yourself innocent. Well, that's not the way our Constitution was set up. We are innocent until proven guilty. I get the right to be in a court of record. I get due process of law, not the fake due process of law that they're currently using the definition for, but the definition from 1891 all the way up to Black Law's Fourth. That's the definition that we get. And that due process of law is materially different and operates under the fundamental common law and the maxims of law, which is the law of the land. And the Supreme Court is now moving in that direction. Let's go to the last page, because I think this is the most interesting and most powerful. I think this clear departure from past practices is both inequitable and unwise. Well, of course she does, because the courts aren't supposed to make the law. They're supposed to adjudicate the conflict that's created and apply the Constitution and the law. The Constitution is the law, not case law. Every single case is different. We don't operate by case law. We operate by constitutions. And we have 51 constitutions that have the law clearly identified. We have the maxims of law, and we have the fundamental common law that is the law of the land. So that sentence is powerful. She recognizes they're losing the grip. For one thing, the court's failure to articulate clear standards for when emergency relief is appropriate makes it difficult to confidentially conclude that any such standards are actually being referenced and applied even-handedly. Well, every single case is unique. So every single case, whoever the defendant is, in this case, it's the plaintiff, because the plaintiff filed to the Supreme Court, the writ, but she is the defendant in the House case. And in that House case, she did not get any due process of law. They literally just removed her from her position on a voluntary, rule that the House and the Speaker of the House basically gets to adopt. And the majority. We are not a democracy. We are a republic. Each and every person, we all have our individual rights, and they must be protected. So, and that's exactly what's happened in this case. Let me go down. Also, as a practical matter, it is plainly prudent to reserve our emergency docket for applicants who demonstrate that they truly need our help now. Well, you know what?
That's a problem. They don't get to decide that.
Exactly. They don't get to decide it. That is not their choice. If they get a writ that's filed, and it's filed by someone in the middle of Oklahoma where her children have been taken, that's an emergency for that person. And that person is a queen or a king in this country, and they are entitled to a response from the Supreme Court.
Well, they've kind of adopted a very monarch system here by saying, I choose you and you and you and not you. You can go away. And, it's like it's based on their own biases.
Well, they've done it not only in the court system, but they've done it in our redress of grievance with the grand juries. That's why it's so important for us to get back the grand juries. The grand juries are the ones that investigate and decide who's going to be indicted. And the grand juries are an independent branch of government. They're not supposed to be controlled by the justice system, the legislative branch, or the executive branch. Right now, they're totally controlled by the executive branch, from Pam Bondi on down. These are supposed to be sitting grand juries all over the country, regionalized, and they're not restricted to the region that they have jurisdiction. They are allowed to go anywhere in the United States of America. So and that kind of goes back to the Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, who again are trying to appease us by these interviews and saying, we've investigated the Epstein files and there's nothing there. There's nothing to see. Well, you know what? That's not their decision to make. That's the grand jury's decision to make. Why are they even making that decision? I mean, did they turn over all the evidence to the grand jury? Is it an independent grand jury, or is it one that they sat with their friends so that they can get whatever result they direct? And that's really what's happened in this country for over 100 years. We need to go back to the founding fathers and what they intended at the time of the signing of the Constitution. And our Bill of Rights are powerful, but we have to stand on those rights. And in order for us to stand on those rights, we need our Supreme Court to give us the redress of grievance that we need, like this writ and many more that are going to follow, because I think over the coming months, they're going to be inundated with writs. And it's going to be so overwhelming to them because they put themselves in this situation. We had 52 million cases filed in this country last year. Those 52 million cases, 90% of them are going into, not constitutional courts. And when they're non-constitutional courts, they're not Article 3 courts. People aren't getting, they're not innocent until proven guilty. I mean, we have to change that system back so people understand their rights and all this tyranny that we're living under, including, property taxes, including income taxes. We got to go back and re-examine all that. All those courts are magistrates and they're legislative courts. The IRS Tax Court is a legislative court. There's no judicial body inside the IRS Tax Court. They're not the judicial arm. So how in the world are they having judicial judges or legislative judges make determinations against whether you're supposed to be paying whatever tax they're charging you with? There's a reason they win 90+% of their cases, because they get to make the rules. You're not following, status, standing, and jurisdiction. You're not determining jurisdiction. You're accepting the fact that you already have jurisdiction. And they don't have jurisdiction 95% of the time. But that's never argued in their courtroom. So that's where the Supreme Court needs to step in and get these federal district courts and the lower courts to understand every case is unique. My case is not your case. Your case isn't my case. When I bring a case, I don't want to hear about case law. Statutes and codes were meant to manage our trustees to protect our rights. That's what a statute and a code is. Statutes and codes, my law is the fundamental common law that's in the Constitution. That's completely separate from statutes and codes. I could care less how many bills they pass. Those bills don't apply to me. I am not a trustee. I'm not inside the trust. I'm the beneficiary of the trust. My rights are protected in my constitutions. So in order for my rights to be protected, I need to have the appropriate remedies, which includes my ability to file my writs if they put me in a situation where the lower courts are following basically case law. And case law is a hoax. So it is not the law of the land. And I do think that her last comment in the last paragraph, the watering down of our courts' standards for granting emergency relief, is, to me, an unfortunate development. Well, this is a Supreme Court justice, and she feels it's an unfortunate development that Miss Libby gets justice. And that, to me, is a shame that a Supreme Court justice thinks that her filing this writ at the Supreme Court, because she's been unjustifiably removed from her position. And I don't forget what the merits are. If they prove that the merits and that she overstepped her bounds and she personally affected another, living being, then she's going to have to pay the penalty for that. But there has been no due process of law for her to be removed from her position and not allowed to vote when the people put her in the office, and the people that put her in the office knew what her position was on transgender. I guarantee you they knew. Mm-hmm. And if they have a problem with her, then it's we, the people's responsibility to send notices and affidavits to her individually, along with other people that are a member of that house in Maine. And that's obviously not where I live. So I'm not involved in the fight in that area, but this issue is nationwide. I mean, so, and there has to be a voice. And if her voice is not the majority, it has to be protected regardless of what it is. So as long as she is not using that voice to create harm or put someone else in danger, she has the right to due process of law. So this is a seminal decision, and I don't think it's going to be the last you're going to see in the coming months. Like I said, I know others that have been filed through affidavit, and it is going to put us in a position where we're going to be able to move our court system to a constitutional court system, which is what the law of the land is.
That's pretty exciting to see the big changes happening.
It is very exciting. It's very exciting. It is. I mean, I kind of wish we were seeing it come directly from the executive branch versus the judicial branch. We know the Supreme Court has flipped. We've seen it in their decisions, in the Bruin decision, and the SEC versus Jacarsi, even in the Trump v. United States. I mean, we've seen it in their decisions. So, and they've repeatedly said, you know, that the law of the land is our constitutions and the fundamental common law. And that emanates in my book, Maxims of Law. So again, a case isn't a case unless it identifies a maxim of law. So it's one of those things. And even earlier, when we talk about these bills and 2,000 bills being filed, you said in
Michigan alone, that's the Michigan legislature. It is so absurd how this entire system works. That's why there's no justice. And then the other thing is that 98% of the cases in that they see end in a money judgment. And guess what? They take 18% of that. I believe it's 18% to go into the retirement funds and all the other things that benefit them. So this is absolutely extortion. It's real.
You understand that they're committing maladministration and treason?
Absolutely.
And every decision they're making right now, it's well known what's happening the last 2 years. And the fact that those judges are choosing to do their job as a judge and then go into a fake court and become a magistrate to get the benefit of income with no judicial review. I mean, they're committing maladministration and treason. I mean, that's 90% of every judge in America. I mean, when you think about
the scale of it,
it's crazy. That's why judges better real quick learn the law, which they did not learn in law school. Unfortunately, we don't teach it ever since 1868. Harvard took the fundamental common law and the maxims of law out of their law school, and every other school in America followed. And so we've had over 100 years, 140 years
of being
law schools.
And being led astray. But this extends to the universities, extends to the takeover of basically the United States and our world through some really bad people. And unfortunately, we haven't. It's taken us until honestly President Trump showed up on the scene here, and all I can say is thank God for President Trump. May he be blessed and may his favor rest upon him. And I think that, you know, I look at his appointments going back to Pam Bondi and some of the others. I've had some like serious moments looking at this going, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? But once again, President Trump is very sophisticated in the way that he approaches things. And I think that what he's doing when he says returning the government to the people, it wasn't going to just be, here's the reins, guys, now let's take over. How many people would actually step up to fill the positions, though there's so many positions that can be eliminated, of course, and departments and bureaus and such, which under Norton versus Shelby County, and yes, I know I'm saying case law here, but you understand what I'm saying is that case proved the Constitution. They had stated that they don't exist I mean,
Correct.
that was a case that basically interpreted or brought forth the Constitution, just like what happened in the reversal of the Chevron decision and such. You've got to go back to the Constitution, and some of these cases just prove that out. And so,
And
though,
they do. We got to get rid of the doctrines.
if you just go back to the basics of the Constitution, problem solved. And I'm going to go back to that. Poof. But what happens when you have a nation of people who have been indoctrinated for how many years?
150 years or more.
150 years or more. How do you hand that back to the people? They've got to learn to think and be educated on what those basics are. And then also go, wow, that is kind of a good idea. Not just as we hold on to our biases. I'm going to go back to this bias, our safety nets that we've created in our minds and or that have been created for us to trade freedom for security, to trade freedom for bringing your kids into these death camps that literally are executing, are killing people by the millions. But yet security, safety, health, and on, that programming and bias just keeps coming over and over and over. And people walk right back into the biases that have been created in their minds when the answer is one step off of the narrative, and all of a sudden everything becomes clear.
It is. And it is God's law. It is God's law. He works in amazing ways. I mean, what he's done for we the people and educating us so that we can, as a group, be able to put our thoughts on paper in such a way that we educate our servants. We let them know that they're violating. I could care less. I mean, I understand and you understand. They put this de jure government over the top of our republic. They wanted us to be effectively a democracy. Ultimately, they want us to be a communist country. And they set up everything to do it.
That's the next step after democracy.
We might already be there given what they've done and the power that those people have. They have control of all these, the judicial system, which is, policies and procedures. They have control of all the sheriffs. They have control of the legislative branch for their benefit, not ours. I mean, I think Elon Musk kind of made it clear. I mean, USAID and USIP, I mean, all these NGOs and the trillions of dollars. And this woman, Catherine Austin Fitts, who worked in the administration, and she said there was $21 trillion of missing money up and through 2015. And she believed she could identify where a lot of that money went. 21 trillion. And it only got worse after that because, as far as she said, everybody in the administration knew it, we can't keep running up the debt the way we did. And we kept running it up. We don't have 37 or 38 trillion of debt. We have 103 trillion of debt and obligations. They stole all the money in Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid.
Look at unfunded liabilities. I think that's up over close to $160 trillion. Nobody's talking about this sort of thing.
Nobody's talking about it. It's not sustainable.
I talk about it. You talk about it. There's those of us out there that have been warning people for years about what the realities of this and how this extends. But the great thing is if somebody gets in there, I don't want to have everybody feel all hopeless or anything like that, because it's very hopeful. It's like getting diagnosed with cancer. Okay. You already had it when you get the news. Okay. This is not a new day. And
you had a great story in one of your,
and I'm living proof of that. When they tell you cancer, guess what? That moment isn't when you had cancer. You got it. You had this for a long time.
Yep.
It's just now you just know the reality of it. So don't cry about it, because once you know the truth, you can deal with it. It's when things are hidden in the shadows, that's when you should be afraid, because you don't know the monster you're facing. If you get the information out there and you know that monster you're facing, you can figure out how to lop its head off. So we're in a great spot right now to see this and be alive in this time that we have instant communication with each other. We have the ability to instantly put together something that will deal with this problem and every other problem that's out there. The one thing that's stopping us, that's standing in the way right now, is the bias factor. It's the fact that the war we've been in this unconventional warfare that we've been in, is a war for our minds. Because if they can keep us as captured assets that keep doing the footwork for them on the ground because of our ignorance, they win. We are the factor that makes or breaks this. The thing that we have to attack is, who are we listening to and which side are we really on, knowingly or unknowingly, right? So when we're listening to people, I see it all the time. USAID was funding how many? It wasn't just fake news, mainstream media. They're funding the majority of the alt media sources. So when you're watching all these people on social media that have come forward and are posting all this stuff of great hidden knowledge that you're never going to hear it anywhere but here kind of nonsense, I'm pretty extra sure you're talking to somebody who's being funded to push a propaganda.
Yep.
If somebody's getting paid for this or has a large audience, and I'm going to bring this up to what happened to you, what's happened to me. If they have a large audience, guaranteed they have a seat at the table with the bad guys.
Yep.
If they're not being attacked or silenced, because your live stream last night got taken down, didn't it?
It got taken down. It's back up right now. It was just before I got on this. So who knows how long it's going to be, but it was 5.5 hours. It ended at 1:30. I'm listening to it again at about 6 o'clock this morning, and it went off the air.
Poof.
So,
and
poof,
that's what happens. And they'll do that. Honestly, they do that to discourage people. We see it all the time. I had somebody on here who is a state level hacker. Let's put it that way. And has done an incredible amount of research on how they hacked our elections and where the software is being hacked. You cannot have an honest election as long as it's digital. I'm just going to say it right now. And it doesn't mean you can talk about the machines all day long. And that's sort of like,
well, you can't have it either. You can't have it either if you're going to do it under the democracy and not the republic.
Correct.
You've got to go back and do it under the republic.
They've got all these smoke screens.
They've got all these smoke
screens. The smoke screens with, it's like, we can talk about these machines all day long. Absolutely, we got a problem there. But guess what, boys and girls? This is in the operating systems, which is running behind everything. It's behind Microsoft. It's in the operating systems. They're keeping you away from
Our group did the only forensic audit in the entire country in Maricopa County, and Joe Von Pulitzer did it, and the information's out there. It's public, and yet
that's one layer. But that's one layer of the
that's what's happened everywhere in the country. But it's one layer, but it's truly what happened in every county in the country.
But we can go deeper than that. This is what I'm trying to say. We're looking at the machines. We're looking at the forensic audit. All this stuff needs to be looked at. But this is in the operating systems behind what is, they can come in, they can change data.
Anytime you're going to give control to a technology company, you have no control.
You have no control. And they're literally,
we need to go back to paper ballots.
I personally believe that they're not only rigging the numbers, they're literally inputting the numbers. And when you get into the operating systems, this is above the counties, this is above the machines, this is above all of it. They can literally input numbers.
Other than Trump and his associates, can you tell me anybody that's been indicted for we know what they've done. We know who's done it. I mean, not just in that area, but across all of government. And yet we don't have any. I mean, There's no,
if people are sitting at the table, they're there for a reason. The ones they attack, the ones they take down, the ones they censor, the ones who have taken no money for this, but just do it as their civic duty.
yep.
And there's a lot of us out there that have done this. It's not just one or two. I could sit here and just name names of the people that I know who have not taken a dime for the time and the effort and their own money that they've put into this, because they believe in the United States of America. They believe in we the people. We believe in we the people. We believe in God, that he's leading us out of this. And there's nothing that we're willing to do to allow that to be compromised, because we stand on integrity. We stand on money's not the only way. We stand on the fact that money is the root of all evil. And we stand together for truth, honesty, integrity, and the good purposes that God has given us to work in this world while we're here on our temporary visa. We're on a temporary work visa here. And when we fly home, it's going to be the greatest celebration ever. You know, I'm pretty sure that there are so many people like you and I and your group and the groups that I'm in. I'm in a lot of different groups. I'm not just in one. I'm in a ton of them. And I got to tell you, the people that I've met that are working behind the scenes, I wish you all could meet all of them. And they're someday, you know, they don't want to be recognized. They don't want anybody to know who they are. They just sit there and they work every single day without fail. They show up, they're putting work out. And those are the people that are the true heroes. I hope someday every single one of them will be recognized for their selfless work, that the gut-wrenching, soulless work that happens every single day just to honestly make a difference in this true fight that's going on around us all the time. It's inspiring. It's wonderful. I'm honored to stand with people that are willing to work regardless of the pushback they get, regardless of the personal damage they get, regardless of the disapproval they get, regardless of being ostracized from groups. Those are the people I want to stand with. Those are our people.
I assure you, it has come to me, but this is what God has called me to do. Clearly, I have lots of different pieces, but I don't have them all. God does. And it's in his time that we will get our remedy. I can just see it happening now. And I see these Supreme Court decisions that are giving us tools that we didn't have. I mean, as recently as 3 months ago. The Supreme Court, these are not easy decisions. We're straight from the hand of God. And it is, you know, without those 3 Supreme Court justices that Trump was able to appoint his first term, maybe we wouldn't have these decisions we have. But clearly, when you get an 8-1 decision and they make this determination in a 48-hour time frame and release it and give someone, even a trustee, remedy, I mean, and justice, I mean, it's pretty powerful. And you're going to see that more and more. And these writs are powerful tools. We need one more powerful tool, and that is the grand juries. And when you see that, the floodgates are going to open, because the grand juries are the ones that all of these notices and all these affidavits and all this corruption that's been going on for over 150 years, that's been hidden from us, is going to come to the surface. And I hate to say it, but it's unfortunate, because it starts with the attorneys and the judges. And the attorneys and the judges, they're not all bad, but they have, most of them, learned a system that is not the law. I mean, in some respects, I feel bad for them, but that means they have to repent and recognize they didn't learn the law, go back, learn the law. If they know the case law and they know that statutory process, that's a statutory administrative process. That is not the law of the land. We need our courts to represent the people and protect the people's rights. And
I agree.
That goes with all of our rights. They were excluded. They're not even part of the Constitution. They're extracted from the Constitution and reserved for our protection. I mean, we saw it in Bruin. They gave us, they basically annihilated the ATF. We saw it with OSHA. We saw it with, under Trump. Trustees, they don't have protection. I don't care whether a judge thinks the judge has immunity. And that's really, in this case, judges think they have immunity. They don't have immunity. When they are thinking that they are creating law, from the bench, case law is not law. That's a hoax. And it has nothing to do. Every single case stands on its own merit. And
well,
it stands.
I tell you what, I've been in Lansing a lot, and yesterday I was there filing again. I just keep picking away at it. Okay. And I think that the attack from many different directions, quite honestly, to hold people accountable is a valid way to address situations. I really do. But what I'm noticing when I go there is there's a split of people that are happy, like really happy to see me. And people who are like, why are you here?
Yep.
I literally have had that I'm telling you, I've had that reaction. Why are you here? Are you filing a lawsuit? And I'm like, no, I already did that. Now I'm just doing a, attestation that the judge asked for. They're literally losing their minds, some of them. But I'm going to tell you, there's a bunch of people who seem super glad to see me when I'm there. And what I can chalk this up to is the fact that they know that things are wrong. They don't know how to fix it. And it's going to take us to show up to help them, because not every person there is a bad guy in a bad system. We have people that are good guys in a bad system that are waiting for us to help them and to fix it. It's up to us. So when you show up, you'll see the dividing, you'll see the partying of the waters right there. Pretty easy to see. The ones who are trying to cover their tails, keep the system the same, like Jackson over here, Justice Jackson, cover their tails, keep it the same, keep the power structure in place. And those who are like, they're praying every day for somebody to show up and help, because they're seeing it from the inside. They have no power to do anything, but they're there. They show up, and they're waiting. They're waiting for us to help them. I can tell you that's what I've seen, and I think
that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
That's what we're all fighting for. All of us who have stepped up to do something, we're all here to help. And none of us are getting paid for this. We're just here to help. Please join us. Please join us. You're never going to see in the U.S. Taxpayers Party, the Constitution Party in Michigan here. We're not going to be accepting money. I'm not going to accept the money other than membership. If people want to do membership or personal donations, we will not accept the dirty money. Not going to happen. I will absolutely, I personally, and I've told him this, I personally will tear the entire thing apart, abolish it, and leave it into a smoldering pile of ashes before we get this thing off the rails. It's not going to happen. State of Michigan, we're going to have to show up and have that same resolve, that unpaid duty as an American, standing together with people we both agree with and disagree with. Not just our little clubs, our little cult clubs, but standing with each other to represent all people. And I think that this is a great thing, a great place to actually stop. I do need to go on to my day today, but I am so thankful for you, Greg. For this is one thing that I notice on Brandenburg News Network. I get it figured out pretty fast. Who is, I'd say I'm a pretty good vetter of people. Although I talk to everyone, I generally know who I'm talking to when I'm talking to them. And I don't put up with a lot of nonsense with people. At the end, I'll give them enough rope to hang themselves. But one thing I will tell you is the people that show up week after week, not to build an audience, not to get into the hero worship or do idolatry or set something else up like that, but the people that just grind it out week after week after week and show up faithfully. I'm going to tell you what, they're in a class all of their own in the political and the news world, because they're here because they know and they believe in getting this information out, educating each other so that we can stand together. To the people that are listening, will you join us? Will you join us in this fight? Very simple thing that you can do every day is you can post. You can get out there in your social media networks.
Spread the word.
Because right now, we are the news. We literally, those of us who don't collect money, who do not do this sort of nonsense, who will openly tell you, question even me, question Greg, question,
Absolutely.
make us prove ourselves and such. Come and join us in this fight. The one thing you can do is you can use your voice and your power to pass this information on, because we have to replace mainstream media. We have to replace alternative media. They're all the same. They're all been funded. If they're taking a dime of this, they've been funded.
How in the world can we continue to fund news media outlets through taxpayer money is beyond me. But you can do that in a democracy, and that's what they've done. Again, a democracy is not a republic. We are a republic, not a democracy.
And we're not just talking like fake Fox News. We're not talking the Clinton News Network, CNN. We're not talking all of these other networks that are out there. We're talking the ones on Telegram, on X, on something. You have no idea who you're talking to there.
None.
You have none. One of the things that I can tell you is I actually, because of some of my connections, I can tell you a lot of the efforts that are CIA efforts, and they're just sitting back laughing at people because they're biting this stuff. They're biting on these fantastical stories that, well, it sounds good. This sounds great, Millie. This sounds great, Agnes. Wow, look at this. We know something that nobody else knows. They know that's how we function. That we want to that people will bite on debate, like firefly bait, something new. Wow, it's got our attention. And then they make it. There's enough truth in it. This is what Satan does. Enough truth to make it kind of possibly plausible. And all of a sudden, all of our efforts go into this new information that makes us special because we're the only one that know. That's how they get us.
I think we have to learn through that, because it's not Elon Musk. He's not the savior of free speech. It's not Donald Trump. He's not the savior of America. It's God. And don't put your faith and your ego in any one of these people. Learn it yourself. Learn what your rights are. Learn what that means. Learn what they've done to us. You don't have to spend as much time as I've spent on it or you've spent on it, Donna, but you have to be engaged. You have to be willing to send that post, to read that notice. Our notices are short and sweet. They are 1 page in length, 90% of them. There's a couple of them that go into a second page. But for the most part, we're trying to educate our trustees, our servants, as to what the law of the land is. And in order to do that, we have to do it through notices and affidavits. And we do it very nicely, very kindly, very succinctly. We spend hours on these notices, and it's not one person. One person brings them to the group, and then literally 100 people will look at a notice before we release it into the public for people to sign it and send it to our trustees.
Yeah, and I think this is, so somebody brought up Trojan horses and must have never heard of Trojan horse. Well, I called it out on a post this morning, and I called it out as the Trojan horse is the border breach. And honestly, and what they use for these emotional pleas, all these emotional pleas are basically Trojan horses that are loaded with, well, when you look at the border, it's the emotional pleas that get us tied in. When you look at Axe My Tax, it's a Trojan horse. It gives an emotion. Well, you don't want older people to be kicked out of their houses.
You know what? We need to go back to the Constitution again. I said this on the very first podcast. Taxes, those types of taxes for our older generation and our people, they're unconstitutional. But as long as you keep opting into them, they're putting everything you own in commerce.
And then they layer,
allowed to tax and manage commerce.
And then they layer on top of it legislation. You can't fix problems by layered legislation. That's how we got all these idiot proposals that went through the last time in Michigan here, because it was a headline. People never read the language, and they didn't look into the fact that, oh, guess what? That means the state owns your kids and you've lost all parental rights.
Correct.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, the one on term limits. Oh, that means that there really are no term limits. There are in a said office, but now we can just play a shell game with cups and move people, same people around again. It codified their ability to get around the Constitution. And they're doing it again. Every time they propose this legislation, a proposal, first of all, they're not supposed to be installed this way, and an amendment. We have not passed an amendment, or the 1963 Constitution of the state of Michigan was not passed constitutionally. All of it it's a sham, all of it. And you can't add more legislation to get rid of the filth that's sitting underneath it. You've got to clean it out.
Well, you've got to understand, a lot of that legislation is literally just for appearance purposes. They recognize it's not, I mean, it's not positive law. Charles Weissman, who had the maxims, he's also got this one, which is just as valuable. And it's again for another conversation for us, the authority of law, which actually will walk you through and help you understand what is real law and what is fake law. I mean, 90% of law is fake law, but if you're going to tacitly acquiesce to their fake law, they're going to take advantage of it.
Well, here's the homework for today. Everybody look at the caduceus and then wonder why our healthcare system is the way it is.
Exactly.
Just look at it. Look at it. And then, make your own decisions up. I mean, this is crazy. We have to be able to look at things for ourselves with nobody. Maybe we should just continue to do the Socratic method of teaching, which has been well used, is just ask a lot of questions. Why do you have entangled snakes?
Yep.
What do they do? It's a venom. They're vipers.
They're vipers. They are absolute vipers. It's
it's
terrible.
With that said, well, let's end in a prayer today, because guys, I think this is a very useful thing to do, because it's just like getting diagnosed with cancer. I'm not talking out of my behind on this one. You had it for a long time. If you get diagnosed with something, don't go into depression. It's like, oh no, all of a sudden I have cancer. No, you had it. Okay. Today you just found out that there was a snake in the room. Okay. Now lop the freaking head off and don't go into depression and sadness. That is a crazy reaction. It really is.
There's 100 ways to deal with it. And
just deal with it.
The information's out there. You just have to search for it.
But you know what? That's what the doctors do. They try to, and the people in our government does. Oh no, you've got this tragedy. Well, guess what? They knew it was there.
They know it was there.
They know that it was there for years, probably, or decades.
They created it.
They created it. And all of a sudden, their emergency, just because their emergency, nobody's emergency translates into a personal emergency. You have to decide that you're going to pick up and make this your own personal emergency. Now, if we don't do that and it's not driven by emotions, it's like, okay, so we got just another thing to work on. That's fantastic, because we have the ability to deal with all of it. First of all, the first thing that we have to deal with it is prayer and talking to Papa. Give it over to God. He's the only one that has the power to deal with any of this stuff, whether he uses people to deal with the situation, or whether he just like brings the hammer down, everybody out of the pool. I'm done with your nonsense. Okay. Could go a lot of different ways, and flipping tables is not out of the realm of possibility. Okay. So, but for
Just ask
certain,
Noah.
what's that?
Just ask Noah.
Ask Noah and read.
He flooded the earth. So.
And read Revelations. I'm pretty extra sure that there's a lot of options out there. And some of them come on a horse, which I got to tell you, it's not a bad thing for me. I love horses. Horses are great. So anyhow, let's say a prayer here, and then you can have the last words, and then we're going to go to the end. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Greg and all the heroes out there that he stands with, that I stand with, that all of us know out there. And I'm even going to say the people who are cashiers in the checkouts of our stores, the people that go to work, the mechanics, the welders, the people that work every day and show up every day to keep this nation running, one nation under you. And I'm just thankful for all of them. Let them know that they're heroes. Every single person out there that gets up and goes to work every day and just grinds it out. They're a hero taking care of their families, which you gave them. And we are so thankful for our friends, our families, the people we work with in issues, and just keeping the nation running and taking care of people, the nurses that have taken care of people over there, the people that work changing sheets and taking care of people in our elder care facilities and such, the ones that keep us going and that serve you, that serve the people, that serve this world, this nation, this world in service to you. I ask your favor, your blessings mightily to rest upon them. Open doors for them, the ones of pure of heart. Give them everything they need to follow you and enable them to do the things that you call them and us to do every single day in service to you. What an honor to know so many great people, and give them your love, peace, and joy today, that they know that you are here, your arms wrapped around all of us, carrying us through this time, and the faith that we know. I trust, we declare that you are able to do all things, and we hand this whole thing over to you. In our error, we thought we could fight it and we screwed it up. We hand the whole thing over to you. We let it go, that knowing that you are faithful, you're good all the time, and you are the only one able to fix the problems that we are facing. But I am thankful for all of the time you've put into us to educate us and show us how our sinful desires and behavior have literally been the element that's destroyed everything good around us. Not that it's gone. I mean, you can resurrect from the dead, so I'm pretty sure you can resurrect all of this. We thank you for that. We thank you for being a friend to us. We love you. We want you to be blessed by our behavior, our words, and our bravery, our courage in times that we will stand through because we ask for it. We ask for strength and courage. By your strength and your courage, and lay it all at the feet of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, who has done it all. It is finished. He said the words, he did it, and we stand on that in love, admiration, and worship of you. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
There we go.
Thank you.
It is done. It is finished by the words of Jesus Christ. We stand. We have a lot to be thankful for today. Yes, when we fail, we fail when we try to do it. When we pray to God and let him do it, bam, game over. He's the one that's...
The minute I turned it over to him, he guided me exactly where I needed to be. So,
and sometimes he just fixes it and says, okay, just stay out of the way here. Let me handle this.
Got to take our egos out of it. Get rid of our egos.
That's right. So anyhow, any last words before we go to my current protest on the 2022 and 2020 election, and probably before that? But any last words here, Greg?
The most important is join the fight. I mean, no matter how small a part you think you can be, every little bit helps. We all have gifts. So bring your gifts to the table, and let's take our country back for our kids and their kids. Amen.
You're all heroes. Those that join the
you
fight,
are.
you're a hero. So with that said, guys, here we go to my current protest. Ding, 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 ding. Go to brandenburgforgovernor.com because I'm the best non-conceder who has ever non-conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I want to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, in cowboy boots. We'll see who wears it better. I win. And then we'll get down to what's really important to talk about. Restoring the Republic, as well as a great big thank you to President Trump, General Flynn, Admiral Rogers, and all the amazing no back down kind of guys that are out there. And just in case you're not from Michigan, guys is a non-gender specific term. Michigan was the first to use it as such, and we continue. I got a guy for this. I got a guy for that. I got a guy. So there you go. At any rate, we're going to return to that. So with that said, everybody, have a great day. God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love. Let me get my heart out there. And God bless America. Make it a great day. Go do something, okay? Do something. Go smile at people in the grocery store. Go tell somebody that they're a hero. Go tell everyone about God's love for them, their salvation, the salvation in Jesus Christ, who God gave his only begotten Son up, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. And when they talk, when it's talked about as God is our Savior, it's not when you croak. It's not when when you step over. He is our Savior here, now, every minute of the day. And we acknowledge him. He's going to be the Savior of America. It's not going to be President Trump. He works through people. It's not going to be me. It's not going to be Greg. It's not going to be any of us out here. We're the body of Christ. He sometimes allows us and to help, not that he needs us. He allows us because he's training us. We're his children. He wants us to know and learn. But it's going to be God Almighty, our Heavenly Father, that fixes this situation. And we're going to lay everything at his feet. And probably not a good idea for anybody to try to take credit for this, because the credit is due alone to God Almighty, creator of the heavens and the earth. And it's going to be glorious. So we'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to be beating up on the DNR again tomorrow. And guess what? We found international links.
Oh,
I love this
Can't
stuff.
wait. Can't wait.
The amount of research that's going on here is just kind of like should be terrifying to the people who are involved in this. Like, I mean, absolutely in the fetal position, terrifying for what they've done. This is going to be so fun. And we're just getting started on this, So hang on. This is going to be a fun ride. I'm going to end the broadcast and we'll talk tomorrow. But as this thing keeps rolling out, better buckle up, because I'm pretty sure that we're going to see some tears of remorse for bad choices that have been made. So we'll see you tomorrow. Stay on the line, Greg.
All right.